Following the election and results returning faster than expected, the president-elect is making his appointments and nominations. Florida will have people in key roles, and Donald Trump starts staffing his next administration. Plus, this iconic city block in Jacksonville in need of repair and redevelopment. After a decade, talks seem to have hit a dead end once again when a 10-point agreement fell through.
Those things were walked back from, and so I can't continue to be a part of a process where I can't count on those things to be followed.
Mayor Donna Degan on the Laura Street Trio, in addition to her priorities on citywide health, on This Week in Jacksonville. Lots of news coming out of the nation's capital this week with Donald Trump presidential transition team grabbing the headlines. Too many Florida connections to count, it seems, and implications for the state as elected leaders are plucked into federal service. Joining me now, News4Jax political analyst and the executive director of the Jacksonville University Public Policy Institute, Rick Mullaney. Rick, this is, we're going to walk through some of these, but this is right out of the gate, the transition team making a lot of appointments.
They have, Kent, and by the way, it's a big contrast to 2016. In 2016, maybe it was the shock of winning, but this time it's much more prepared, much more experienced, and the appointments are coming much quicker. And as you mentioned, a big Florida connection, these appointments. Obviously, Susie Wiles. You look at Senator Marco Rubio, for example, Representative Walz, and so, and even Rick Scott, not an appointment, but certainly when he contended to be the majority leader in the Senate. So big contrast from 2016.
So I want to walk through some of these. Wednesday, we learned that President-elect Trump is nominating Florida Representative Matt Gaetz to be the Attorney General. Gaetz immediately resigned from the House of Representatives, and in a post on Truth Social, Mr. Trump writes, Gaetz is a deeply gifted and tenacious attorney trained at the William and Mary College of Law. Matt will end weaponized government, protect our borders, dismantle criminal organizations, and restore Americans' badly shattered faith and confidence in the Justice Department. But let's talk about this. This seems to be the most controversial of these early appointments or nominations. There's an ethics investigation in the House against Representative Gaetz. Previously, Department of Justice investigated him for sex trafficking charges. He has maintained his innocence, but this is, again, going to be a tough place for that nomination to go through, isn't it?
You know, Kent, yes. It's interesting. We're less than 2 weeks away from the election. And coming out of the election, Donald Trump, first Republican to win the popular vote in 20 years. Really, those electoral votes, kind of an electoral landslide with 312. Enjoying a, sort of that goodwill period, that honeymoon period. He's got a lot of political capital. This particular pick has been the defining pick so far, and it has been the most controversial. And you've seen criticisms from the right and the left, criticisms from the Wall Street Journal, criticisms from left-leaning publications, criticisms from Republican and Democrats on this pick. And as you just outlined, you go back in his history, some are attacking qualifications just as a lawyer. For example, graduated from law school but practiced only a very limited time before getting into public life. And then, of course, the ethics investigation in the House. And you may have seen that he resigned immediately, which brings an end in some ways to that investigation. They stopped their investigation, but that report could go forward to the Senate. Then you had a Justice Department investigation, and of course, very, very provocative, very partisan during his time in the House. The one person responsible for the Representative McCarthy being thrown out as Speaker, first time in history it's happened in that way. This pick really does stand out, and it is the most controversial of all. So you have to wait and see what happens here.
Yeah, and there was already maybe some intrigue, if not outright concern, about what President-elect Trump would do in the Justice Department because he feels like he's been unfairly targeted during these last several years. Let's look at some of the other appointments. Mr. Trump also announced that he selected former Democratic Congresswoman turned Trump supporter Tulsi Gabbard. It's his pick to be Director of National Intelligence. And also, Rick just mentioned this, Mr. Trump also officially nominated Senator Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. Rubio was once a rival to Trump on the campaign trail, but he emerged as a pretty strong surrogate this year. His confirmation in the Senate seems likely, as opposed to that nomination that we're also talking about there. Gabbard may have some difficulty getting through as well.
I would not put Marco Rubio's nomination in the same category as Tulsi Gabbard's. Marco Rubio, I think, is going to have bipartisan support. Foreign policy has been a strength of Marco Rubio's for many, many years. And he's a little bit more establishment, although he's shifted a little bit on Ukraine. He's very articulate, very well informed, very smart on foreign policy, and I think he's going to get, like I said, bipartisan support. The two most provocative picks, the two most controversial, the two that face the most challenge in the Senate. And remember, there's a 53 to 47 advantage for the Republicans, and because You have the White House with a Republican. The tiebreaker goes to the vice president, so you need 4 votes. The two are Gaetz and Gabbard. Gabbard in particular also is one of the most provocative picks and one of the most controversial. A lot of people talking about her relationship and conversations regarding Russia, about her background, about her qualifications for her to be the director of national intelligence. So expect that pick to be closely scrutinized. Look to those hearings. And if Matt Gaetz gets to a hearing, you could always withdraw that nomination in advance. I expect there'll be a groundswell of opposition. There'll also be some people supporting because they're loyal to the president. But that pick is particularly defining. Those are the 2 picks so far that have gotten the most controversy.
As divisive as things have been, I want to show you a moment of unity, maybe. President Joe Biden and President-elect Donald Trump, they met in the Oval Office this week. First sit-down meeting since the election, and cameras were allowed in for the first few minutes. Rick, you know that it's tradition for the outgoing president to host the incoming commander-in-chief after the election, and ironically, Mr. Trump broke the tradition in 2020 when he was fighting the election results. The 2 presidents spoke about 2 hours. They discussed topics, we're told, like national security, domestic policy issues. Mr. Biden's chief of staff joined the meeting along with incoming chief of staff Susie Wiles. One of my questions to you is, does this reflect more of the experience that Mr. Trump has in a second administration? A lot of talk that even he has admitted, hey, maybe I didn't do as well as I could have in that first term. Maybe I'll do better in the second.
Ken, I think it reflects the experience of both. It does for Donald Trump, but it also does Joe Biden. Joe Biden's been around for 50 years, 50 years of public service. He's been in the U.S. Senate for a long time, an institutionalist. He certainly recognized the kind of meeting he wanted to have in the transition of power. This is a good moment, I think, for the country, certainly to the extent that Donald Trump can sit down with Joe Biden and they can talk about these national security issues in particular and other challenges. That's a good thing for the incoming administration. It certainly is in contrast to what happened 4 years ago, which really is an outlier. What happened 4 years ago is not the tradition. This really more is the tradition, and it's been one of the defining things in this country for 235 years since the adoption of the Constitution. I mark it from 1789, so more than 2 centuries. But it's a remarkable thing, this transition of power. I think many were glad to see this meeting happen the way it did.
Yeah, there's a healing component after the competition to see the 2 leaders say, hey, thank you for welcoming me. Thank you for a transition that's going to be good and everything. Final thing, important vote this week in Capitol Hill. Republican John Thune of South Dakota elected Senate Majority Leader. He replaces longtime leader Mitch McConnell. South Dakotans going to take over in January at the turn of the new Congress, and that's when Republicans will have control of the government trifecta here, Rick. They'll control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. This seems like it will be helpful to the president-elect getting his agenda going quickly.
It will be helpful, but he is a little more traditional, a little more establishment, more from the Mitch McConnell school. And one of the interesting tests will be the recess appointments in particular. And that is when the Senate is in recess for more than 10 days, is the president able to appoint some of those key appointments? For example, Matt Gaetz. Could he do that in a recess appointment? And John Thune can arrange it in such a way that that does not happen. So John has pledged, of course, loyalty to the agenda. He's promised to expedite things. I think Rick Scott in particular is even a stronger Trump loyalist, but he was defeated in a vote this week, this past week, for majority leader. So John Thune's been around for a long time, very experienced. Interesting pick by the senators for him to be their majority leader.
Rick, I appreciate it. Thanks for talking through that. And stay with us, because when we come back, Jacksonville native Donna, Degan, the city's mayor, the Lore Street Trio, and how to support people experiencing homelessness. Those are some of the topics just ahead on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
Thanks for staying with us today. The Jacksonville City Council auditor looking into Mayor Donna Degan's trip to London after members of City Council raised some questions about it. Jacksonville City Council, the former president, Ron Salem, he's pushing for an audit into Mayor Degan's trip to Italy, which was made 4 days after she arrived in London. The mayor assured that her vacation was paid for out of pocket, and Mayor Degan's office provided a report showing that the only city expense was Degan's hotel in London. A statement from the mayor's office reads, "We have provided a detailed itinerary and expense breakdown that shows nothing inappropriate about Mayor Degan's efforts to bring jobs and businesses back to Jacksonville. She's been completely transparent with taxpayers about her London trade mission travel. Citizens deserve that from any elected leader who was there." The council auditor's office going through the information it received, and we're told they're coming back to the Finance Committee with a summary of findings this Tuesday, November 19th. in Jacksonville. Mayor Donna Degan joining us for the rest of our show today. Mayor, it's been an eventful few weeks since we got to speak last month. Where do things stand on that? Initially, when that all kind of came out of council, hey, what happened on this vacation? You guys said, we'll tell you everything.
You know, honestly, the same thing happened last year where they wanted an audit of everything. I don't recall that ever happening in years past. But the truth is, I let them know a month in advance at least that I would be going for the first 4 days of the trip. A lot of the folks that are making questions came for the last 4 days. I came for the first 4, they came for the last 4. But I asked the Chamber and Jax USA, load all of the meetings that you need me into the first 4 days. And they said, that is absolutely no problem, we can do it. I have not had a proper vacation since I've been in this office, so I said I'm gonna take the last 4 days and I'm gonna go to Italy. Obviously, and I think every single person on that council knows that I would never, ever consider charging the city of Jacksonville for any vacation that I had. And of course I did not. And I did exactly what I did last year. I asked the city to pay for my hotel in London, which is where a lot of the meetings were located. I paid for my own air travel. I paid for my own food, which I don't have to do, but I did because I can, and I don't want to have the bills to be, and I know we have other people there that have meetings as well, so the bill ends up, you know, for everybody economic development wise. So at the end of the day, we were happy to turn those things over. I think, as I said, taxpayers always deserve transparency, and that's why we've created all these transparency dashboards. They will always get that from me. And it was frankly really disappointing to see this made an issue of when they know perfectly well. And if you talk to anybody at the Chamber or anybody at Jax USA, they will tell you about how many people I met with, how hard I worked while I was there. And I'll always do that for the people of Jacksonville. So hopefully, once they have all this, we can move on from it.
Andre Wallace, the leader of Jax USA, came out quickly after that and confirmed all of that, saying this is how we arranged this, and Mayor Degan was in the important meetings while she was there. There have been some questions that came up, and I just wanted to ask you about this on the state level or the federal level. State of Florida, House, Senate, executive branch, all led by Republicans. The same now is the case on the federal side after the recent election. So some people are, hey, how does this impact any kind of appropriations or help that the city of Jacksonville will get because you're a Democrat? Do you foresee any issues with some of the things that have happened? And just last year we were talking about the Department of Transportation. Oh, that's earlier this year, right? The largest grant that the city of Jacksonville has gotten.
Right. Well, we've received hundreds of millions of dollars in grants from the federal government. I think if we didn't get another dime, we'd probably still be way ahead of the game there. But the truth is, we have had to work across the aisle from the moment that I've been in here. Certainly, I had a great relationship with the White House. I look forward to having a great relationship with this White House. I've known Susie Wiles for many years. I've certainly worked well with Senator Scott, with Senator Rubio, with Congressmen Bean and Rutherford. So certainly, I think my life might have been a little easier had I been able to maintain those relationships that I had. But I certainly think that all of those people still want the best for Jacksonville. And just the same way that I work across the aisle every single day with our city council and with our representatives both in Tallahassee and in Washington, I'll continue to do that.
Yeah. This came up this week about, we heard that the city of Jacksonville has ended negotiations with the developer of the Laura Street Trio. So we've talked even on our show here before.
Yep.
This is, I mean, it's iconic in what could be there if it was redeveloped. What was the reasoning behind saying, okay, we're kind of at an impasse, we've got to move on? And I showed a soundbite at the beginning of the show where you're saying, hey, things change, I've got to be able to trust that we're going to make progress or I've got to move on.
Listen, Kent, I can't tell you how hard we have worked to try to make this deal. Last time we talked, I was very optimistic.
Yeah.
I thought we had come up with a 10-point plan that would move us forward into the next phase. We removed the lawsuit that we had. But what we came into it with was, look, the city's liability can't increase, and our money can't be front-loaded. Those were two of the big points in that 10-point plan. Agreed to. And then because of, I think, the developer and the consultant there, I think we ended up sort of back where we started on those things. We have to be able to agree to move forward on the same set of facts. And I think at the end of the day, the liability for the city, the timing of when that money would have to come through, all of it is just, It's untenable. We just, and frankly, once again, deal number 6, the goalposts are moved at the last moment when we think that we have the framework of a deal to move forward. So I understand for the developer, for us, for anybody that takes this project on, it's a challenging project. But at the end of the day, for the city to try to haul about 50% of that is
It's too much in your opinion.
Just, well, it's not just my opinion. The General Counsel had some serious concerns there in terms of whether or not that would even be a legal thing to be able to do. So we have done everything we can possibly do. As you know, Mike Weinstein and Darnell Smith both were very involved in this, both very talented at trying to get deals together, and it's just hard to work with something where the goalposts are constantly moved. And I'm just, the lawsuit has now been put back into place, and we're terminating those negotiations.
We understand Councilman Kevin Carrico is going to try on the city council side again to see what can happen there and make something positive out of it. Thank you for talking about that.
You bet.
I invite you to stay with us because when we come back, Mayor Degan's focus on helping everyone in Duval County find health coverage. That's next on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4.
In Jacksonville, Mayor Donna Degan's our guest, a 3-time cancer survivor. You diagnosed breast cancer, gosh, it's 25 years ago now.
Long time.
And I guess I'd like to start here in this segment with something that I know is a priority to you, and that is health. You've said that's a huge priority for you,
Absolutely.
for everybody in Duval County.
Yep.
And this month, the city of Jacksonville has been pushing people who don't have medical insurance to get health insurance through the Get Covered Jax campaign. So let's talk about that and another initiative that you just brought up today.
Well, I want to tell you how grateful I am that you all have been a part of this. That phone bank that we had the other night, I took some calls on that phone bank, but I'll tell you, people are so grateful for it. Those phones never stopped ringing from noon to 7 p.m. It is, I've said this so many times, a confused mind says no. And if you don't understand what's available to you, you're not going to avail yourself. So to be able to connect people with a navigator who can then tell them how to get almost everyone we can connect. And we increased our insured rate by 34% last year. 73% of that came in Health Zone 1, which was fabulous for us, right? And so our goal is to continue that to make sure that we have a healthier Jacksonville, because our primary care numbers right now are not very good. And you can't really have a healthy economy without a healthy citizenry, healthy workforce, all those things. It's just important. So, and then for those that can't be insured, we've started a brand new service called HealthLink Jax. We're one of the only people in the country with this. And it's a telemedicine service where basically people can call and be connected to a doctor right there. That doctor can then assess them and then connect them with services that are available to them that will keep them out of the emergency room. That's the goal. Keep people out of the emergency room, because that's where all the big costs are. And so already in the first month we've had this in place, we've saved about $550,000 from emergency room visits, which ultimately saves everybody money. So these are two initiatives we're very excited about. And you're right, to me it's extraordinarily important on so many levels to make sure that especially folks who don't believe they have an opportunity get that opportunity.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, my mind has been changed about telemedicine. I remember when this came up several years ago, I'm like, how could that possibly work?
It works beautifully.
Yes, what a great thing, and I love the innovation there to be able to offer that. And you said it's just a month old, this program.
Just a month old, and saved $550,000 already.
Let me shift topics just a little bit. This week, City Council took up a bill that's going to set aside $1.3 million and add 110 more beds to 3 city shelters. Really, the bill helps the city comply with this new state law, which bans overnight sleeping or camping in public places without a permit.
Yes.
This is an issue trying to address this that you guys have been working on throughout the city, right?
Yeah, it's good to have some bipartisan movement on that. As you know, we put money for that into the budget, which was then taken out because there was a concern about the reserves, which I argued at the time were plentiful. Now we're going to go in and we're going to take that money out of the reserves for this program, and we should. So I'm grateful that council's coming along on this, or at least I hope they will, because we absolutely must address this issue to help our homeless population and to get them off the streets, but also to get them the help they need.
Yeah. Sheriff's Office has released some of the video, the interactions with officers, with some of the people, and just saying, hey, have you been warned about this? Hey, this is happening. Hey, I'm letting you know in advance if we have to interact like this
But
again.
listen, I want you to know that's any sort of interaction in terms of JSO once we get this plan going forward it is going to be a last resort. JFRD has a PATH team out there that's going to be literally connecting people to services right there on the street. So we're very excited about that. We're so grateful they stepped up, and that's going to be a game changer for us, I think.
Yeah, you did mention that when we say bipartisan, but it's also multi-agency.
Absolutely.
JFRD and your
well,
office.
and we've had a lot of interest from the private sector in helping in this issue too. I mean, this is an investment that the whole community needs to make, because obviously it's a state law, but beyond that, it really has a lot to do with the success of downtown initiatives, and we want people to feel safe wherever they are in the city.
Yeah, it would seem like it also addresses quality of life in your city when the care for other people is right out there in front of us. I appreciate the care you're taking on talking with us. We've been doing this about once a month since you got into office, and I know our viewers appreciate hearing from you.
Always enjoy your thoughtful questions. Thank you, Kent.
Thank you. All right, so this week in Jacksonville, we air each Sunday morning at this time, and next week, City Councilman Rory Diamond will be here. We're working to talk with former Mayor Lenny Curry as well. I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for watching on air on Channel 4 and the CW17 and online at news4jax.com or streaming on News4Jax Plus. And don't forget to check out This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition. This week's podcast looks at e-commerce and ways to succeed as an entrepreneur. You can find new episodes every Thursday at 9 a.m. and you'll find it right now on News4Jax Plus under the channel This Week in Jacksonville.
See why every day more people are choosing News 4 Jax, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.